but on the other hand, madness. In any case, I said no to the cruise idea. I couldn't think of a worse prospect, a floating plastic city full of food-eating vacationers with potential for massive water shutdown, decks to be littered with plump orange bags of human waste. Closed spaces, planned activities, nausea, the smell of greasy carbs, families wearing bright primary colors or even vibrant fluorescents, heaving themselves into a pool. Among those families wearing flashy deco clothes, those clothes that actually assaulted your eyeballs with their hideous fluorescence, there'd have to be some victims of the morbid obesity pandemic, and with the possibilities of food poisoning, sewage overflow, and tragic obesity, a cruise was something I couldn't face. And so I went to Chip. I sat down beside him and took his hands and said, "Chip, I'm glad to be marrying you, but no cruise ships, not a single one." So Chip moved on to other honeymoon concepts. He found a French driving tour involving Maseratis and Formula One race cars, where pros would drive a newlywed couple many times around a racetrack, super fast, so fast their heads would have to be spinning, their innards turbulent. "Not so auspicious, Chip," I said, for honeymooners, in my humble opinion. He ferreted out a Peaks of the Himalayas voyage next, with visits to monasteries, meditations, and nosebleeds from the lack of oxygen up there. I always think I would have been a monk, a nun, or some other holy person in another life. It turned out I was modern, well-dressed, and fairly talkative, but that's a quirk of timing. If I'd been born in the medieval part of history, I hope I would have been a monk or nun, quiet and wearing a certain mantle of wisdom. I hope I would have used the time to think, possibly more than I do now, as a medieval-type person. I see myself singing in chapels, light streaming down on me, the singing of hymns, the kneeling down to pray, the walking with a proud, erect posture. I wouldn't have been a peasant, I hope, busily sweeping mud off pigs, possibly dying while grunting as a baby's head stuck out of me. However, currently I'm not a nun/monk, and neither is Chip, and chances are will never be. I thought maybe the monks would turn out depressing, with their enlightened, humble existence. What came up for me, considering those Himalayan monks and the gonging sound of temple gongs, the gong, 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 what I thought of was the suspicion a person might start to have, in the monkish setting, that marriage overall might be a bad idea. The inner peace a monk projects, combined with never having sex, I don't know if that attitude is really honeymoon material. You do hear about people, sure, who visit someplace Asian and scenic at a certain altitude, Asian or Indian, and then decide to go native. In one fell swoop, they copy the whole Buddhist or yoga idea. They give away their worldly goods, move to a mountain hut where baths are taken in the snow, and then pretend they never heard of home equity lines of credit or eyelash extensions. Next comes the cross-legged chanting, the wearing of loose and flowing robes, the eating of plain brown rice. Some of them eat the rice just one grain at a time, holding that single grain in long, delicate chopsticks. You hear about it, and despite your incredulity that a person would ever give up the bounty of our modern life, a minuscule part of you can almost see the seduction. Just minuscule, but still, I didn't want to run the risk. "I'll take a pass on that serenity," I said to Chip. "I'm just not in the mood for it." I think, to be honest, Chip really wasn't in the mood either, once he did more research and got an inkling that the monks wouldn't be like monks in video games. I think he'd been half hoping for monks with supernatural powers, at least flying kung fu. He first expected temples you could run through, surmounting obstacles and solving puzzles as you went. Then it began to seem as though extremely wise monks might be the best he could hope for, and I think at that point his interest waned. Next, he got pretty enthusiastic on the topic of a shark feeding situation, a shark and stingray feeding package, with round-trip fare included, optimistically.